It's time for Around the Ozarks Sports Scene, sponsored by Fast Break Sports and The Pitch. Here's your host, Scott Purrier.
Welcome into another edition of Around the Ozarks Sports Scene. I am Scott Purrier. As always, big thanks to our sponsors, Fast Break Sports and The Pitch Pizza and Pub. We'll talk more about them at the end of the podcast this week. Special guest with us today is the head coach at the University of North Carolina, Pembroke. He is a former Rogersville Wildcat and a Missouri State Bear. Had a great basketball career at both places. Been out in the Carolinas now for a few years. We welcome in Drew Richards. Drew, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
Absolutely. Yeah, you guys on a roll again. This coaching thing must be easy. You know, I mean, when you're an assistant coach, you won everywhere. You go to, is it Pembroke or Pembroke?
So it depends on if you're from Pembroke. So out here, I mean, the Southern twang is very prevalent. So it's Pembroke out here. But if you're from anywhere else, it's Pembroke.
Okay. We'll just call it the Big P. How's that? Or something to that effect. But 5 seasons there as the head coach. Of course, you were there as the associate head coach and assistant before that. But as a head coach now, 125-32. Another great team this year, 23-6 overall. You finish your conference play 18-2, and you're going back to the NCAA Division II Southeast Regional, which is this the third straight trip or fourth?
Fourth straight trip.
Yeah. How far have you gone in the regional? What's been the peak there?
So, that's kind of been, I guess, if you will, like kind of the Achilles heel so far. We've been able to make the regional. My after COVID, we had to opt out because of a bunch of variables. So technically my first full season as head coach, we won. We beat a really good top 25 team in the first round. Then we ended up losing at the last second to Augusta, who ended up playing Northwest Missouri State in the national championship that year. So that year we lost in the second round. I think there were 5 teams in our regional that were ranked in the top 15 in the country, which is just, one of the issues with Division II NCAA tournaments. But the last couple of years, we've really struggled in the first round. 2 years ago, we really just kind of got our butts kicked. Last year, we had some injuries go down, so we ended up losing in double OT. So, it's one of those things that, our focus now that we've kind of gotten past the regular season, past the conference tournament is, we'd like to try to make some more noise in the NCAA tournament than we have in the past years.
So you're going to Columbus, Georgia. You take on Lincoln Memorial, which is a nationally top 25 ranked team. You guys are 25, I think, in the latest poll in there. You played Lincoln Memorial back in November, beat them on your floor by 8. So there is some familiarity. I guess that was a non-conference. How was that set up for that game?
Yeah, it was a non-conference game. It was actually a return game from the previous season. We played at Lincoln the year before. Lincoln's, that's where Josh Schertz's assistant took over. Jeremiah took over for him. They're still, the cream of the crop division. If you're going to talk about the Dukes and Carolinas of Division I, Lincoln Memorial will be kind of the Duke of Carolina Division II.
Very good. And so expecting another tough battle, I guess, especially when you get this time of year. Everybody's pretty good, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. You get to the NCAA tournament. There's not a lot of – everyone's got their styles of play, but there's not a lot of flaws. And so, you don't have to play perfectly, but you have to do the things that have brought you success. And if you kind of deter from that, teams will take advantage of it. And that's where we've got to keep our mindset going into Saturday. And
we say fifth year, but really the first year was a throwaway because that was the COVID 2021 year. 3-3 record then. What a great way to start your head coaching career, huh?
Oh my! Well, I started at Lander as my first year head coach.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
We had a great season and first most wins in the last 20 years and got to do some special things. And then, when the UNC-P brought me back, there was all this, I remember the boosters calling me and saying, hey, there's a lot of high expectations in that first year. I have to call my athletic director and say, hey, I think we're going to opt out. And it was not an easy decision, but, you always want to do what's best in the interest of your players. And we had players whose parents had passed away. We had 3 consecutive positive COVID false positives. I think we had to cancel like 10 games at that point. So, the seniors, the captains that come to me and say, Coach, like we're exhausted both mentally and dealing with this stuff. So if it's possible, we'd like to opt out. And then, if we do that, you have our word that we'd be back. Because all 3 of them end up being first team all league guys. And one of them was the conference player of the year. And I said, hey, I trust you guys, your word. And so they end up coming back and we end up having the best season in school history the following year.
Yeah. And the Lander was 1 year. Would you say you won 23, I think, that year, didn't you, at Lander?
Yep.
Yeah. Was that just a case where Pembroke opened up and it was home to you or talk about that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I was here for under Coach Miller and his dad Eldon Miller on staff, which was an incredible 5-year. We had a great run and learning from those guys. And so, I've always been the guy that, you try to work where your feet are, and opportunities, if they're meant to be, will come open. And so when Lander came open, it seemed like a really good fit. And so when we accepted the job at Lander, Coach Miller had no intentions of leaving Pembroke. We had bought a house. It was we probably watched House Hunters too much. We bought a house and flipped it, and did all that, invested all this money into this house. And of course, that wasn't the plans. After that season, we were expecting there to be there at Lander for a while. And then when Coach Miller resigned, and Pembroke had contacted to come back, our kids were born here. My son was born in Lumberton. My daughter was born in Fayetteville. All of our friends that we've grown to know over here, my wife's friends, her job that she had left to go to Lander was here. And so it was a tough decision because we're very appreciative of what Lander had offered. But whenever it opened up, it was, this essentially outside of Springfield, Missouri has become home. So when we offered to come back, it was a tough decision, but I think it was the right one.
Is Ben Miller still in coaching, or is he out?
So he is out. He had resigned and pursued other avenues. He had actually coached some AAU now. Now he's doing some consulting with college basketball teams.
Okay, awesome. So let's go back. Played at Rogersville, 2000 to 04, maybe in that range. Was that Gary Mack or Gorman or both?
So Gary Mack, it was Coach Gorman. Actually, Gary Mack had resigned, I think, my second or third grade year, because I actually wrote a paper that was pro keeping Gary Mack as the coach at Rogersville in second grade because of how much I loved how he coached. Flash forward to Coach Gorman getting the job, and obviously Coach Gorman was fantastic, and we still were close to this day. But at the time, second grade me was very pro Gary Mack keeping that job.
Second grader writing a paper, I'm sure it was probably 20, 30 pages. And
yeah. APA cited and all that stuff. Yeah, of course.
Of course, great career under Gorman with the Wildcats, and then big deal when you signed with Missouri State. I remember the news, and Barry Henson, the coach then. And you look back now, what are some of your best memories as a Bear?
I just think it's funny how close we were as a team, and I think, I use so much from my time at Missouri State, both good and bad, my failures as a player, or positive as a player, failures as a team, positive as a team, as a way to, try to give advice to our team. If you'd laugh how many times I brought up the 21 RPI team when we're on the bubble. I actually just had that conversation a week ago. I said, guys, I've been a part of that. I've stood on CBS Sports and seen other schools' names called and not ours. And it was devastating, But then, I talk about playing Louisville and Freedom Hall and things like that. So there's so many positives that come out of that.
As we had a little technical difficulty there, but we're back live now, internet connection one way or the other. But you were talking about bringing up the 21 RPI team to how many times you've done it. But you do draw on those memories as a player with your teams now.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, the good and the bad as a player, good and bad as a team, the things that, we failed at or succeeded at as a player, the things you failed or succeeded as a team, I think are learning lessons that you can, preach on. Everything happens for a reason. So whether good or bad, you can use that as motivation for your team. And, looking back at Missouri State and seeing, the relationships that we built with Blake and Sky and Nate and Deke and Kellen and Ann and all these guys over the years, those are lifelong friendships that we had established. And, I look back at Missouri State with, I know we missed the tournament, but looking back for averaging in those 4 years, we averaged over around 20 wins. And, as far as success in a 4-year span, I think he is arguably the most successful 4-year span that we've had in a while at Missouri State. So I've been proud of those years, but you can still use the negative from those years and be able to, and impart that knowledge, if you will, on our team now.
Have you incorporated any Barryisms into your talks or anything like any dadgummits or some of those Barry Henson phrases?
I don't think Coach Henson and I's coaching style is very similar. I haven't yet busted out the Jiminy Christmas. I'm pretty sure my team would look at me like I was insane if I screamed out Jiminy Christmas. Now, I do slam my foot on the floor, but a size 17 compared to whatever Coach Henson's was at the time makes a little bit more noise. So there is a little bit in there, but yeah, it is funny looking back at that stuff.
Do you stay in touch with any of your former teammates or Coach Henson or anybody now that you're in coaching?
Yeah, a lot of the teammates. I talked to Blake a lot, especially last year. Sky Frazier actually lives in Greenville, South Carolina, so I'm able to see him. Nate and Deke and Kellen and Ant and, all those guys, we've stayed in pretty good contact. I mean, we were a very close-knit team, and those are kind of lifelong relationships that we built, and coaches wise, obviously I stayed in touch with Coach Henson off and on over the years. But like obviously working for Coach Miller for all those years. And then, like a guy like Kyan Brown that's at Omaha, KB and I have stayed in really close contact over the years. And so, you want to stay in touch. And Steve Lynch, I mean, these guys that we've had coaching over the years, I mean, you always want to stay in touch with those guys and think about the good times and be able to continue communicating and moving forward.
When you graduated from Missouri State, of course, 4-year letterman and the Guy Thompson Award winner, went and played a year in Germany. Did you intend to get into coaching at that point, at some point, or did it just kind of pop up as, hey, I want to go down this path? Because I know you did some color commentary for Bears games too, and of course your father-in-law Mike Keltner, that's his gig now. So I mean, what was the plan after Germany originally?
No, it had never even crossed my mind to get into coaching, to be honest with you. When I got back from Germany and, I signed with an agency over there and then was supposed to go back to another situation and then it didn't work out. So they wanted me to wait till January and I didn't really feel like waiting. I was kind of reached my cap as far as that. So I when I was sitting there looking and there was no more basketball, all these coaches in my life always talked about when that ball stops bouncing. Well, it's kind of a jarring thing when it does, especially when you don't know what you want to do. And so I kind of started filling up different pots. I started selling insurance. I started doing the radio for the Bears. And then Dale Lamberth, another teammate of mine that we stayed close over the years, Dale called me and was like, hey, do you want to help coach this AU team? I'm doing the Missouri Flight. And I was like, that sounds like it might be kind of fun, I guess. So, when I first started coaching when I was Dale's assistant. And when I was Dale's assistant, at first it was kind of a part-time job being Dale's assistant and full-time was selling insurance and doing the radio. Well, 2 years passed. And all of a sudden I realized that I didn't want to sell insurance anymore. The radio had me close to the game, but not as much as I wanted to be in. And really what I wanted to do was coach. But having that little bit of time between, playing and then getting into coaching, I think was really recharging for batteries as far as the game is concerned. But and then staying close to it, doing the radio was helpful and seeing the success that Zoe had. Kyle Weems' year. I mean, I still remember sitting next to Art Haynes and them hitting the shot at Northern Iowa, and that was fun to celebrate. But you're like, man, I really wish I had more stock in this game. I really wish I could contribute in some way. And so helping Dale coach the Flight kind of ended up evolving into, me emailing every coach I could think of. I mean, trying to call Greg McDermott, Dana Altman, hey, is there any coaching spots available? I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get into college coaching. And I actually helped coach with Schaefer at Hillcrest for a summer for like a weekend because that was going to be the plan until the opportunity Missouri State West Plains came open.
Member of Conference Carolinas, 76-11 in that league. Is basketball different in each region? Is it a different style? Because you mentioned your style earlier. You're averaging about 88 points a game. You guys shoot the threes. Looks obviously your kids have fun getting up and down the floor. Is it a different style of play there than, say, the Midwest and the MIAA and GOEC and these conferences that are in D2?
For sure, yeah. I think each region is different. I think us in the Florida region and the Atlantic region are very similar, but when you get to the GLVC and the MIAA, I think you get a different kind of style. When we talk small town, this is an adjustment for me. When we talk small town basketball out here, I assumed it was similar to small town basketball in Missouri. And then I get out here and I see 6'5", 6'6" guys that can windmill in small town, Class 1A basketball. I'm like, this is a lot different than Missouri. Yeah. And so the recruiting base is very different out here compared to the Midwest. And so I think that base is a big reason why you look at the styles of play and how, probably the MIAA GLVC is closer to like a Big Ten type, in Missouri Valley type play. And then you look at like us, Conference Carolina, SAC, Peach Belt is closer to like an SEC type, ACC type play. So I think those high level leagues are are very similar, not as far as players and things, but as far as playing style, I think it's very apparent based on the regions that they're located.
I looked at the regional pairings last night, and in the Midwest regional or whatever it's called here for the GOEC and the GLIAC and those teams, number one seed is Missouri S&T. and Lincoln is in there. I'm like, my God, what's happened? Are cats and dogs living together now that S&T is good and Lincoln's good? And, some of the traditional powers are not there. And I know a lot of them in the GOEC in particular have moved up to Division I, your Bellarmins, your Northern Kentuckys, your Southern Indianas. But is the portal, and I don't know on a level of D2 with NIL, are those changing things now where new teams can pop up like that and get good all of a sudden?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the portal, we always say the portal giveth and the portal taketh away. And that's true at any level. I mean, guys, especially Division II now, whenever the NCAA got rid of the, D2 to D1 sit out a year rule, all it's created is essentially poaching from Division I to Division II. It's something you got to deal with the entire year. And then you tack NIL on top of that. And really at our level, NIL isn't as prevalent, obviously, as like that mid to high majors, but it's still something you deal with. I mean, we lost 3 recruits last year to NIL. So if you get a team at whatever institution and, they throw, I don't want to call out teams, but there's a team, in our region that it was injected with NIL and they went from being kind of the middle to the bottom of the region to now they're one of the best teams in the region because of that injection. And, it's just part of college basketball these days, whether we like it or not, it is what it is to stay. So I think more teams have opportunities to be better depending on, what kind of guys they can get out of the portal. And then obviously if there is any type of money that they could throw at them, now you're saying, I think you can go from literally being bad one year to great the next one at our level if you have that injection of funds and you get a good portal class.
Do you have to, you win 20 to 25 games a year. People are going to start poaching players. Has that been a problem in that region as well for you and others?
I think it's just nationwide. I mean, and I think it's like, low major poached Division II, mid majors poached low major. I mean, it's the Wild West at this point. So, really it's no matter, I think the more frustrating thing is when it comes down to recruiting with NIL, because, back in the day and the things that Coach Miller did that I learned from him about building relationships and being in the gym and watching games. I mean, we still try to see kids once a week, once or twice a week, go to their high school games, go to their senior nights, talk to their parents, talk to their coaches. Ultimately, all that relationship building is great until someone says, I got $20,000 for you. And then once they do that, it doesn't matter. Relationship building is irrelevant in recruiting in a lot of ways nowadays because of the injection of money.
How important is it to coach and play a style that's fun in today's game? Because, with all these other variables in play now for a recruit, do you need to run up and down the floor and shoot it and let the kids play kind of like they've done in AAU to really thrive, I guess, in recruiting?
I don't know if it's as important as it used to be. And it comes down to the money again. Like kids aren't even taking visits anymore. Not at our level, but like higher levels, it's not. They're getting on Zoom calls and they're saying, "Hey, we got this much for you." And if they want it, then they do, and they commit, and that's it. Like there's not really like these recruiting visits and things that you used to do to put on a great roll out the red carpet and hey, this is our style of play. This is what we emphasize. And once again, I'm not speaking exclusively at our level because there is still some of that in our level, which is very, I wouldn't say that's like the last pure kind of college basketball, but essentially like I think you can still recruit without NIL at the Division II level and be successful. But when you get up to the higher levels, there isn't any of that, sending letters every day. There's none of that, getting to know your AAU coach or your mom. It's all a price tag. So I don't even think playing style, campus, academics, none of that stuff has been as relevant in the last couple of years, and it probably won't be as relevant moving forward at the higher levels.
Looks like Pembroke, North Carolina is a town of about 3,000, maybe 45 minutes an hour south and east of Charlotte. Is that accurate?
We're about an hour and a half from Charlotte.
Okay. What is life like there? Is it a little bit like Rogersville and Springfield, except you're a little further away, or how would you describe it? And how have you and your wife Shaylee and the kids adapted to small town life there?
So we don't live in Pembroke.
Okay.
So there's a town called Lumberton that's about 10 or 15 minutes away. It's kind of like, I don't know, probably Rogersville to Springfield. But we lived in Lumberton for our first 4 years here, and then we moved to Hope Mills, which is about 35 minutes away. Near Fayetteville, which is Fayetteville's it's about the same size as Springfield. So we're basically in a suburb of Fayetteville. Pembroke itself is it's got to be the most unique place I've ever lived and been around. I mean, the between the university itself and then between the Native American tribe that's very prevalent in this area, it is very unique. I mean, you think about a town of 3,000 people, but the university itself is almost 8,000 people.
Oh, wow.
And then we've been top 30 in the nation in attendance in our games. We had over 1,000 people, almost 1,100 people per game this year on average. And that's kind of crazy when you think about a town of 3,000 people. And so they love basketball here. I mean, our guys walk around like celebrity. I mean, I know it's town 3,000, but people walk around. I mean, they're signing autographs at Walmart. They're getting invited to birthday parties for kids. I mean, they really feel like celebrities around here because of how much they care about not only the athletic programs, but the university itself.
We're doing a double dip with our podcast this week, talking to the two local guys from that are playing at Drake University, and what a great story that is with Ben McCollum going from Northwest Missouri State, where he won, I think, 5 national championships, 4 or 5, took 4 of his starters to Drake, and all they do is go 30-3. Is that a great statement for Division II basketball across the country? And, I know in your profession, guys can get labeled a Division II coach. What Ben McCollum and Drake are doing? And of course, the story's not written yet because they got the March Madness coming up, but what has that done for the D2 coaches and players across the country?
Well, I think it provides validity of something that anybody that has any knowledge of college basketball understands. Coaching is coaching. I mean, it's seeing, Mac. I mean, I've known Coach McCollum for a little while now, and seeing what he does, I don't think it's surprising to anybody that's ever watched his teams play. But it's not just him doing this. I mean, Josh Schertz at Indiana State, D2 guy. Bart Lundy, who's at UW Milwaukee, doing the same thing. Tobin Anderson, Lenny Acuff. I mean, you could go through. I mean, Greg McDermott was a Division II head coach at one point. I mean, there's lists of guys that have taken Division I programs and made them better. And I think the big misconception is, oh, he's a Division II head coach. Division I program wants him, and he's just going to go. The thing I think that Coach McCollum did a phenomenal job was he was picky. He knew the job he wanted, and he knew he was going to be successful wherever he went, but he turned down multiple jobs over the years because they weren't the right fit. And I think there's a lot of Division II, especially with NIL and the portal, I think there's a lot of Division II head coaches that love being at this level because of the balance. And they know they could go to a Division I program and be successful, but they want to stay in a program that they have life in the balance. They have a time to spend with their family. They have time to do things that they'd like to do and still and still coach basketball at a high level. So it's great to see them. And like, honestly, the player, the great, I think the portal makes it very obvious, especially with how many Division II players are having success at Division I level. But the high major D2s and the low major Division Is or even low plus, there's not a lot of difference there between the top players. And I think all it does is just completely validate everything that Division II head coaches, Division II players have been saying over the years is we can play at this level. And I think that shows it with Coach McCollum, Coach Schertz, Coach Lundy, and everybody else that's gone on to be successful through Division II.
The big difference is they won't play you, right, in the exhibition. Talk about the family. I mean, you've got 2 kids. How old are they now? Are they sports kids?
So my son Knox is 8, and Knox is absolutely live or die, breathes, eats sports. We were at his baseball practice last night. I mean, the guy, he is utterly obsessed with sports, basketball, everything you could imagine. Every sport he could. He literally will turn on. He turned on wrestling the other day and watched and picked a team and cheered for that team like it was like his team that he grew up with. I mean, that's how obsessive he is.
Yeah.
And then my daughter, Benton, who's 6, can't stand sports. Doesn't want to do anything with them. Loves cheerleading, dance. She says she only likes the games that daddy coaches. Literally we won the championship on Sunday of the tournament. And the first thing she ran down, she goes, "Daddy, we had 107. That's great." I'm like, she has no idea about any of it. She doesn't really care. And it's a great balance to have because like the times when it's frustrating, the times you want to get away from basketball to be able to go watch a cheerleading and just worry about her cheer that you and her went over at home or like going to her dance thing. I mean, it is a really great balance to have a kid that's so utterly obsessed with sports and one that could care less about it.
As Knox on his way to a size 17 shoe, I mean, you were 6'9" as a player, probably accurately now, 6'8" or so. I mean, the dude pumped those up a little bit, but is he going to be a big kid?
So Benton's 99th percentile. Knox is somehow, I don't know how this is physically possible. He's over the 99th percentile. He's like in his own percentile currently in height. So here's hoping. The doctor told me about 2 years ago that he was going to be 6'4", and I embarrassed my wife because I got mad at him. So I'm hoping if he can keep growing, whatever he chooses to do in his life, but I think he's on the trajectory to get to be pretty tall.
I know you got to get to practice, so we'll cut this short here a second. Do you keep up with the Wildcats, Rogersville and Schaefer? I know they're having a phenomenal year and a really good team. And then the Bears, how close do you stay to what the Bears are doing?
So, Rogersville, I have not been back to Rog in a couple of years, but I mean, I know Coach Schaefer. I've known him for a while. I almost worked for him when he was at Hillcrest. So, I mean, I'm always pulling for the Wildcats and seeing the success they have. And I had no doubt when he took over that they were going to continue to do all the things that we were able to do and then surpass those things. So, I mean, we're always pulling for the Wildcats. I mean, Rogersville itself, driving through there, I mean, we had like a Chinese restaurant. We had Fox's Pizza. We had Hardee's. And it's crazy to see that it's become like this city now. And then the Bears obviously always going to be a Missouri State Bear. We always cheer them on, and especially with my father-in-law's doing the radio. We're able to stay updated with everything, and we're always pulling for the success of the Bears.
I know career aspirations. Every guy wants to go as high as they can with the level. Sounds like you guys are pretty comfortable in North Carolina right now, and just take it year by year.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just, in this business, how crazy it is these days. I mean, just to first of all, be employed. Second of all, be employed at a place that you really enjoy and that you love. And then, being able to spend time with your family and have that life and the balance and being able to both be a dad and a coach and a husband and a coach, it's very critical. The more I talk to guys that make that jump. And so, yeah, I mean, we're really happy right now, and the idea is to continue to try to be as successful as possible at UNC-Pembroke.
Very good. Drew, I know, let's get to practice. Let's win a regional. Let's go to an Elite Eight, okay?
Sounds good to me.
Thanks for your time, and best of luck to you.
Hey, thanks, Scott.
You bet. Drew Richards, the former Rogersville standout, and, of course, Bear, big fan favorite with the Bears for his shot blocking ability and just ability to take control in the middle. And so we appreciate Drew taking time to visit before his practice today. And our apologies for the little technical glitch. Hopefully we can clean that up in a little editing afterward. But want to thank our sponsors, of course, Fast Break Sports is your home for all things sports collectibles and memorabilia, located 3109 South Campbell. Go out and check out the latest in new sports cards, whether it's basketball, baseball, football. They'll help you get those collectibles graded and put away in the right plastic holders and things like that to preserve their condition. But they've got it all there at Fast Break Sports, including sports memorabilia for your favorite team. So go check them out. And then the Pitch Pizza and Pub off East Sunshine in the Southern Hills Shopping Center. The Pitch will be a great place to go for lunch here about a week from now, or actually now, with all the conference tournaments going on. They've got TVs everywhere, a nice sports bar setup. March Madness will start next week. I'm sure they'll have a great crowd lunch and dinner Thursday and Friday when those things kick off. But great pizza. They've got the calzones, the appetizers, cold beverages, all at the Pitch in the Southern Hills Shopping Center. Go check them out today. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Around the Ozarks Sports Scene. Again, thanks to Drew Richards for his time. We will see you next week when we come back and talk sports for another week.